On this battlefield, if you go back to Testimony Volume 5, on this battlefield comes the last great controversy between truth and error. Because it's about truth and error now. I want to maintain that continuity there. The Spirit of prophecy says we're on a battlefield, and the controversy is over the Sabbath. But we can't get sidetracked. She reminds us that the foundation of the battlefield is truth and error. We know the Sabbath is paramount, but it's about truth and error. There's a true marriage and there's a false marriage. There's a true Sabbath, there's a false Sabbath. There's a truth and error. We've got to stay with the truth and error. Remember, the Eastern religions influence the hippies, Hindus, beliefs, reality, everything around us. You know, the Hindus say it's an illusion, Maya, mind-blowing, reinforced that. That's why they got into it, because to the Hindus, you know, this thing doesn't exist. That's an illusion. You're an illusion. You know, that's no reality. And then the other religion, you go out and you come back at a higher form. That's what the nirvana is all about in this yoga thing. You go into higher levels of existence until you reach the highest level of nirvana. Go out as a donkey, come back as a tiger. Go out as a tiger, come back as a whatever. Back and forth, this reincarnation thing. All that mixing. And mixing and tearing up the mind with drugs. That's how we got here today. In the Hindu and Buddhist countries today, countries in the 1040 window. You know what 1040 window is? 10 degree parallel, 4 degrees, or latitude rather. Everything in that 1040 window, which is why the church is focusing on that 1040 window, trained by a missionary office. But when you go in that 1040 window, if it had no Western influence, they have no interest in building hospitals, schools, no basic morality, no science or technology. The physical world is an illusion and life has no meaning, so there's no sense in having all that stuff. So if it had no Western influence, they don't build that stuff. Well, that's not, if the basic religion it's not going to be here anyway, so why do all that? But when you have Western influence, when you see these things pop up, the Satanic war plan is the destruction of what? Absolute truth. That's what plan is. Let's destroy absolute truth. And it's working. And then she talks about oppressive enactments. By the decree enforcing the institution of the papacy, in violation of the law of God, our nation will disconnect herself fully from righteousness. When Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf, grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over the abyss and clasp hands with spiritualism, when under the influence of this threefold union, our country shall repudiate, we heard that last night, repudiate every principle of the Constitution as a Protestant and a Republican government, shall make provisions for the propagation of the papal falsehood and delusions, then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous work of Satan, and that the what? And so here's the questions. At this point, she's going to disconnect herself fully from righteousness. So the question would be, is America connected with righteousness now? Because to disconnect yourself fully from something means you must be partially connected. So the Spirit of prophecy says, disconnect yourself fully. So she must be partially connected. We're going to find out in a minute. And then repudiate every aspect of the Constitution. As a Protestant and Republican government, is America a Republican government? And is America a Protestant nation? That's a question. Not a rhetorical question either. What do you think? Is America a Protestant nation? You always hear, we can't have religion. Is America a Protestant nation? No. Is America a Republican government? Well, the Spirit of prophecy is talking to you. I ain't making that up. That's the Spirit of prophecy quote. Just read what she said. She says, under the influence of this threefold union, our country shall repudiate every principle of its Constitution as a Protestant and Republican government. She's telling you it is. Now let's confirm what she said. Since she said it, let's check it out. That's the question. Righteousness. Are we connected or disconnected? Let's take a look. Is America connected to righteousness? Spirit of prophecy says, when the land which the Lord provided as an asylum for his people, that they might worship him according to the dictates of their own conscience. This is 3 statements going to come under that. That's the first part of the statement. What she says here is, America exists because God brought it into creation for the sole purpose of an asylum for people escaping Europe. Amen. At the conclusion of the 1,203 score days, when the woman was flying in the wilderness, at the conclusion of that period, which ended when? 1798. That's what students say. 1798. Now, when did America come into existence? 1776. So right around the time when America came into existence, God was preparing a place for the woman at the conclusion of this 1,203 score days, 1798. 1776, the land is ready. The Pope is taken captive in 1798. And God brought America into existence as an asylum. What's an asylum? Asylum for his people. A place where they can't be touched. Yes. That's one part to show us that it's connected to righteousness. Now, the land over which for long years the shield of omnipotence, what? Has spread. Ellen White says, for many years, a special shield of protection has been around America. Even hurricanes doesn't hit America. All the hurricanes that come off the shore, you want me to come off? You want me to hit? The spirit that was drawing himself and more hit. But there has been a shield of omnipotence around this nation from its existence. Put there by God. The land which God has favored by making it the depository of the pure religion of Christ, it is a depository of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Amen. That's what the pure religion of Christ is. The Protestant religion is not pure. Not as it came out of Europe. But the Protestant Reformation brought Sunday with it. Uriah Smith says, the gospel was impaired in their hands. So God brought a pure religion, not a pure people. I'm a testament to that. But a pure doctrine. God created this place for the asylum. He put a special protection on it, and he deposited it. The Seventh-day Adventist Church, right here, not in Europe. America is connected to righteousness, as the spirit of prophecy said she was. But when she made these legislative enactments, she would disconnect herself fully from that righteousness. When you pass laws that said you have to enforce Sunday, the false Sabbath, over the true Sabbath, then you have fully disconnected yourself from that righteousness. When that land shall, through its legislators, abjure the principles of Protestantism and give countenance to Romish apostasy in tampering with God's law, then it will be time for God to work in mighty power for the vindication of his word, of his truth. When this land does all these things, it will fully disconnect itself and be time for God to do his work. What is Protestantism? Because the question is, now we know America is connected to righteousness. That's what it says. It's a Protestant nation. You hear that in the debate all the time. There ain't no Protestant nation. The Constitution says, don't have to have that stuff in it. See, it's not necessarily what you have in the Constitution, what was the intent when it was created. What was God's intent for? Not necessarily just what got into the paperwork. But let's look, what is Protestantism? adherence to the religion and belief of a Protestant church. Number two, the religion and religious belief fostered by the Protestant movement. So a Protestant. We protest, the indulgences. We protest, with these 95 theses that Martin Luther put up. These things we subscribe to, but we are Protestants. Is America a Protestant nation? The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soils of Europe in blood for centuries. A signer of the Constitution tells us that we have a separation of church and state to keep from American shores. Now, the ceaseless strife that soaked Europe in blood was over religion. It was over Pope being in charge of things and all these crusade wars and stuff. And he said here, we're going to separate church and state to keep that bloodshed off of these shores. America was founded on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Let's take a quick look at this. The Declaration has many references to God throughout the document. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, that they are endowed, given something by God, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, endowed, unalienable. Some say inalienable. The document says unalienable. What's the difference between inalienable and unalienable?
Can and cannot.
Can and cannot? If you look it up on the internet and say, what's the difference between inalienable? You have a lot of debate. Some folks say it ain't no difference. But I'll tell you what, when I found it, honed it down, I'll show you the difference. Now, Jefferson wrote this statement, but it was edited, I think, by Adams. Jefferson wrote it. When Jefferson wrote it, he said inalienable. If you go to the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C., and you look at this wall where the same thing is on the wall, attributed to him, this wall says inalienable. It doesn't say what the document says. It said what he said. He said inalienable. Adams changed that and it was voted in as unalienable. Now, I'm glad you asked the difference. An inalienable right versus an unalienable right is just what it says here. We're endowed with it by God. Life is describes it. God gives you life. An unalienable right is a right that can't be taken from you, and you can't give it away.
There you go.
It's not yours to give away. You can't give someone your life if you didn't give it to yourself. God gives us our freedom. And even if you make some servitude pact or indentured servant pact, you really can't do that under God. Now God gives us a liberty. Christ says it. And our right to pursue happiness. These are things that God gave us from creation. They're unalienable. They cannot be separated from us, and we cannot give them away. An inalienable right is a right that you can give away. God didn't give it to you. You have land rights. You will it to your children. You have rights to property. But the state can come right down the middle road and knock you out of the way from all your other types of rights that you may have. They're inalienable. They were given to you by a government, and they can be taken by the same thing. And you can give them away. But you can't do that with an unalienable right. So Adams put unalienable. Why do you think Jefferson couldn't do the same thing? Slave owner. He had 600 slaves. He could put unalienable. That'd be so contradictory that you say God give folks creative equal and give us something, and you currently holding 600 slaves. You take the same thing that you say in the document, but all the rest of it is his, except that word right there. And in here, his word is back on the wall. That's what he has on the wall with the inalienable. America was founded on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. The Constitution makes no reference to God. The Constitution honors the first day Christian Sabbath. It does. It says this in the Constitution: the president given 10 days to sign a bill into law. If any bill shall not be returned by the president within 10 days, Sunday accepted, after it shall have been presented, the same to become law. Trump and everybody else got 10 days. Everything that Congress says, you got 10 days to sign up while it's law. Actually, you got 11, because 10 days is going to span a Sunday. And the reason they exempted Sunday, because they expect the president to be in church on Sunday. So they exempted Sunday in the Constitution. That Sunday is accepted. The president got 11 days by default. So the first day is in the Constitution. When the Constitution was completed in 1787, the delegates signed the Constitution in the year of our Lord. This is a direct reference to Christianity, the year of our Lord. So it's peppered all the way through. And let's look at a few comments. We asked was the Protestant nation. This is what John Adams said. The general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. I will avow that I then believe, and now believe, that those general principles of Christianity are the eternal and immutable as the existence and attributes of God. This is the sign of the Constitution saying that. Then the Supreme Court said, our laws and our institutions must necessarily be based upon and embody the teachings of the Redeemer of mankind. Wow. It's impossible that it should be otherwise. And in this sense, and to this extent, our civilization and our institutions are emphatically what? Christian. The Supreme Court in 1892. When the Spirit of prophecy tells you something, you can bank on it. Amen. She said, this is a proclamation. Then she said, this is Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. It cannot be emphasized too strongly that this great nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians. Not by religions, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ. For this very reason, people of all faiths have been afforded asylum, prosperity, and freedom of worship here. It's for that same reason that all the religions can come here. Right. Because we are Christians. These folks are signatories of the Constitution. They telling you what was in their mind when they put it together. They put together a document to reflect the Christianity of this nation. While we are zealous, this is George Washington himself, while we are zealously performing the duties of good citizens and soldiers, we certainly are not to be inattentive to the higher duties of religion. To the distinguished character of patriot, it should be our highest glory to add the more distinguished character of Christian. Come on. You hear all these patriots, and they're all the things, and patriotism is a big thing today. George Washington said, that's fine. We ought to be calling ourselves Christians more than just patriots. That patriot thing is where the secular humanists want to take it. They want to take it from the Christian thing and place it all on patriotism. Is America a Republican government, as the Spirit of prophecy says she is? A government of the people, in which the power of sovereignty is vested in the people and exercised by the people. It's a Republican now, not a Republican Party, Republican form of government. either directly or through representatives chosen by the people. In a republic, the group only has advisory powers. Sovereignty lies with each individual person. It takes 100% of a jury to deny sovereignty for the individual. If we were not a Republican nation, a majority of jurors can send you to the death sentence. 7 out of 12. But now, since we are a Republican nation, to take my individual sovereignty from me in a Republican form of government, it takes all 12 of them. Any one can free me. They come back and one said no. It takes 100% in a Republican form of government. A democracy, a government in which the sovereign powers reside in and is exercised by the whole body of free citizens directly or through a system of representation. In a pure democracy, 51% beat 49%. And the majority or losers have no rights, but only those privileges granted by the dictatorship of the majority. In a pure democracy, it only takes a simple majority to convict. And an electoral college would not be possible in a pure democracy. If we had a pure democracy, we would be on this electoral thing. The popular vote will elect the president. The fact that the popular vote does not elect the president tells you we're not a democracy. We're a republic. Republican form of government. And in a democracy, when the majority wins, they can change everything. They become a dictatorship. You accept everything they say. In a republic, you retain all those other basic rights. In a democracy, they wipe all that out. We're getting ready to show you an example of that in just a second, what this is leading to. You said it when you were a child. And to the republic for which it stands. We were just raising our hand up, praise the leader to the flag. Say it all through your childhood. And it tell you right there that the flag represents the republic. You praise the leader to that flag and to the republic for which it stands. It's a symbol of a republic. Freedom prophecy says, our country shall repudiate, refuse, reject, renounce, abandon. In other words, these are synonyms. Every principle of this Constitution as a Protestant and Republican government. So let's examine the Constitution. And I don't examine it as a constitutional lawyer. I ain't like a lawyer. So if you know a lot about the Constitution, I'm not here to debate your knowledge of the Constitution. I'm just simply showing you to stay consistent, because there's something we have to know about the Constitution in order to get to where the Lord wants to take us on this thing. This is the Constitution. It only has 7 articles. They get detailed, but this is the Constitution. Article 7 establishes the legislative branch of Congress. 2, President. 3, Supreme Court. 4, relation of the states to each other. I want you to remember this, because this is where we're headed. Article 5. How do you amend the Constitution? The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, ratified by the legislature of 3/4 of the several states. There's 2 ways you can do it. Congress decide we need to amend the Constitution. If the House and Senate, 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate said we need to amend the Constitution, and they vote on a set amendment, then they send it out to each state legislature. 3/4 of the states must say yes in order for it to be ratified and become law. So, when you had the 13 colonies, you didn't have that many to ratify when you sent something out to them. Now we got 50 states. That's why they say 3/4 of the several states. Now we got 50 states to amend the Constitution through that process. If the House and Senate agree, then they'll send it out to the state legislatures. And it would take 3/4 of 50 is 37.5, round up, it would take 38 states for that amendment to become law. 38 of the 50. The other way, the application of the legislature of 2/3 of the several states shall call a convention for proposing amendments. let's say something is sweeping the nation. Something is in the air. And they want an amendment to the Constitution. Each state legislature will take up the issue. And if, like it says here, if 2/3 of the states, currently 34, if 34 states agree through their legislators that this amendment should be law in the Constitution, then they will submit that through application. They'll submit it to Congress, who will call for a constitutional convention. Well, the states send delegates to a constitutional convention, and then the individuals, the delegates to that convention, will decide whether it's a law. That's only been done one time. It's a very dangerous way of amending the Constitution. Because once you call a constitutional convention, the people are not bound to what you call them for. You could call a constitutional amendment. So we need a constitutional amendment to ban smoking. But when they get to the convention, how about throwing a Sunday law on the agenda?
Come on now.
So let's take a look. That's the Constitution. Article 7 talks about how it's ratified. The Constitution is ratified by those 13 original colonies. So that part has been done. But this talks about amending. This talks about the national debt is in the Constitution. But this is all it is. Now, the Constitution, the 7 articles, mention no rights. There's nothing up here to give you a right. The Constitution itself establishes the form of government that we have, how it operates. You don't have a right to free speech anywhere in this. You don't have no right to assemble. You don't have no right. Nothing in here gives you a right. It establishes the government. The amendments to the Constitution is what gives us our rights. The Constitution has been added to, amended. So let's look at that. The first 10 amendments we call the Bill of Rights. 1789, ratified in 1790. It took Congress, did all this stuff and sent it out to the states. It took all that time to get the whole thing ratified. Here is your freedom of speech, press, right to assembly. Congress should make, here's your free exercise. Congress should make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. First Amendment. Right to bear arms, this Second Amendment. It's a terrible thing going on today. I don't think the framers said every nut should have a gun. I just don't think they were thinking about that when they put this together. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Right to people bear arms shall not be infringed when you put together a militia. They didn't have no way of, passing out arms. You had your own gun, you formulated a militia. Bring yours. And here we have housing of soldiers. I talk about an inalienable right. Your house is only yours until the government needs to confiscate it. If they come through your house with an army and they need to house soldiers, they need to take a bath in your shower, they're going to take your house and put the soldiers in there. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in manner to be prescribed by the law. That law would say everything it needs to say to take over your house and do what they want to do in time of war. Housing and property is an inalienable right. So what if the people say, I'm a homeowner, you're a home renter. I don't care what you paid for it. It is not your house. It's the government's house. So get our mind straight on this stuff. The Fourth Amendment, search and arrest. Right of people to secure the person, pay her unreasonable search and seizure. They have to get a warrant. And it shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause. So this is why the police have to have a warrant. I mean, you got to no-knock warrants. It's still a warrant, but they got to knock until they come in. That's called a no-knock. That's how they did manifold, manifold in the bed sleep. And they tapped him on the shoulder in his bed. We're here. And they do you the same way. They got a doctor. That little battering ram thing, that's when they can't get in. But they got some of the best lock pickers out there. They get in there. Manifold, you ain't have a match. Like you think the guy in his house, he got a match with all this security. But when they want to get in your house, they get in there. And then you have Fifth Amendment. That's what the lawyer took this past week. He went there and said he wanted to self-incriminate himself. No person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment of indictment of a grand jury, nor shall any person be subject to the same offense twice, double jeopardy, life and limb, nor shall be compelled in a criminal case to be a witness against themselves. This is all, these when we start to get some rights, not in the Constitution. Sixth one, right to a fair trial. 7th, right to, in civil cases, bails. You have a constitutional right by the 8th Amendment to a bail. You say, why would the judge let this person out? He has to let him out. Unless he has a reasonable thing to say, I'm going to deny you bail. You got to have a real good reason to deny a person bail. Right to retain by people and powers retained by the state. These are the first 10. And here are the others. The Constitution has been amended 27 times. And only been repealed one time. Liquor came in on the 18th. And the folks went so crazy when they banned liquor. The mob came in, white. Everybody started selling liquor, moonshine, Al Capone. Everybody started getting rich. The folks went crazy. So Congress decided on the 21st to repeal prohibition. They had to make liquor legal again. To calm the folks. 27 times. And it's good because it needs to be difficult to amend the Constitution. Otherwise, you know how many times the Constitution has been attempted to be amended? In the history of our nation, how many times? 10,000 times. 10,000 proposals have come to Congress to change and add to the Constitution. Here, Congress didn't pass their salaries until 202 years later, 1992. And they've been going crazy. They were scared to kind of get themselves a pay raise. Even though it's 1789, they could set the salaries, but nobody wanted to fool with it. But it was ratified, the last of the necessary states ratified it in 92. And ever since they got that ratified, they've been getting steady pay raises ever since. But it took 202, that proposal had no time limit. Amendments now go out with time limits. If they're not done by a certain time, it dies on the vine. The 27 amendments are not considered oppressive, but the sure word of prophecy says, not having a thus saith the Lord, the scriptures rather, to bring against the advocates of Bible Sabbath, they will resort to oppressive enactments to supply the light, to secure the popularity and patronage. Legislators will yield the demand for a Sunday law. See, the enactment of a national Sunday law, not a state blue law. You got county blue law that says, look, it's not legal here or whatever. Sunday, we're closed on Sunday. A national Sunday law will require constitutional amendment and repeal or repudiate the First Amendment, which says Congress should make no law respecting or establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. You got to do something down that line to get it in. Sunday respects Christianity. No other organized religion holds it as sacred. And our law to observe it prohibits the others from free exercise of their own chosen faith. You got a hodgepodge of all kinds of religions in here now. And to enact a Sunday law is to target the Christian faith and do something for them that you're not doing for the others. I told you earlier, since 1789, the Constitution had only been changed one different time. There have been close to 10,000 amendments proposed in Congress. The success rate of amendments to become the Constitution is less than 1% of these 10,000 has become a law. Let's look at some of the things that failed. Let's just look at some of the minds of people. Let's look at what they tried to get the Constitution amended to. Here's some of the ones that failed to become law. In 1876, an attempt to abolish the United States Senate. The forbidding of religious leaders from occupying a government office in 1876. An executive council should replace the office of president. Sorry, too about bad idea. Instead of having the president, you have three people in that office as an executive council instead of one person. And if it had been passed, that's what you have. Instead of all these other presidents, you have 3 people that the people have to vote in office. Hold that. In 1894, acknowledging that the Constitution recognizes God and Jesus as the supreme authorities in human affairs. They tried to amend the Constitution to say that. And then, in 1900s, lately, 1912, making marriage between races illegal. Because after slavery and Reconstruction, then that was a lot more decent. 1916, act of war put to a national vote. Anyone voting yes had to register as a volunteer for service in the U.S. Army. That's not a bad idea. You know, that's just because the legislators, they don't have to fight. There's no war unless Congress declares war. Individuals can't declare war. War is declared against governments. So if you say you want to go to war, then you immediately volunteer. And you go fight. I like to have a veteran. I like that. Don't we, Brother? A bad idea. In 1948, the right of citizens to segregate themselves from others. By right. In 1971, American citizens should have the alienable right to an environment free of pollution. You see when it came in, behind the 60s, this was a new age Mother Earth movement that was on the heels of that. You have an alienable right. It's a right, alienable, that can be taken as well. You're not endowed with it, but you have a right to an environment free of pollution. Now, here's a little synopsis of unratified amendments. Now, these are amendments that were passed by Congress, sent out to the states, but were either not ratified or have not been ratified. Some of them are still out there to be ratified because there was no time to put on. You see, the salary thing lasted 202 years, and there's some other things out there right now. Let's look at some of the unratified amendments that got through Congress. Congress passed them and sent them out to be ratified. Congressional apportionment. Regulate the size of congressional districts for the House of Representatives. Ratified by 10 states. Last one to ratify was in 1791 and been pending since 1789. Now, Congress didn't want the House of Representatives to be up to, what is it now? 435. They wanted to limit the size. Because right now, it is based on the population. You get another representative, basically grow. So that was an amendment to limit the size. And Congress said yes. Let's limit the House of Representatives. Title of nobility. If you went out and the Queen of England knighted you, they'll strip you of your U.S. citizenship. Something was going on around that time with these nobility issues. Congress said yes. It's been pending, still on the books now, since 1810. The Corwin Amendment would make the state's domestic institutions of slavery impervious to the constitutional amendment procedures of Articles 5 and immune to abolition or interference from Congress. Pending since 1861, ratified by 2 states in 1862. Now, the Corwin Amendment says, let's make slavery impossible to get rid of by the Constitution. It went to Congress in 1861. And both houses, 2/3 of both houses, Senate and Representatives, said yes. Let's do that. 2 states ratified, sent out to the state for ratification, still pending. It's out there. Now, let's break it down. March 2nd, 1861, the Corwin Amendment, and by the way, Abraham Lincoln, in his inaugural address, said that he agreed with the Corwin Amendment. He said, I have no intention of doing away with the Corwin Amendment. Now, let's break it down. When was the Civil War? When did the Civil War kick off?
1861.
1861. Now, Ellen White had a vision in the Park View Church in Michigan in January of 1861. She said, I saw a vision of a terrible war on this soil. Many of the folks in this church lost their sons in the war. It was in January. States were seceding from the Union during this time. In fact, in February 1861, the Confederate States of America was brought into existence. We already had the Confederacy. Those many states had already seceded. So, Corwin comes from Ohio. He was the representative. The senator that introduced it in the Senate comes from New York. The South had nothing to do with the Corwin Amendment. Most of the states had already seceded and didn't even vote on it. This is mostly something that the northern states, the border states, voted on. The reason they voted it, the reason they put it out there, was that they were trying to stop the bleeding. So many states were seceding that they felt like, if we tell the folks we're going to leave their institutional law, maybe they won't leave. The one that hadn't already left. The Corwin Amendment was targeting the border states. You see, you had border states that were slaveholding states but had not left. So it really didn't apply necessarily to the Confederacy who's gone. If they want to come back because they see that, that's fine. But if they stop the bleeding, you have Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia. All these border states have slaves, but they haven't seceded in 1861 in March. So let's just tell them, we'll make slavery, you just keep the slaves, just stay in the Union. So the next month, the shot was fired at Fort Sumter in April of 1861, kicking off the Civil War. So when Lincoln called for troops, Tennessee seceded, and Virginia seceded from the Union, joined the Confederacy. So what they were trying to do to stop the bleeding really didn't work. President Buchanan signed that amendment, even though the president doesn't have to sign this. They have no part of the amendment process. Buchanan signed it. So what Lincoln was saying was, I'm just agreeing with what the last president said. He signed it, so and the legislature already said, oh, let it go like that. His mind changed later on in terms of the slavery issue. We all know it wasn't a big thing in terms of that. But they were trying to come up with some ideas of how to stop the bleeding and stop the secession. This plan didn't work. So the question becomes, since it's already out there, and still out there, suppose they take it back up. Now, when we look at the issue of the Emancipation Proclamation, we say the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves. Well, when you read the document, the Emancipation Proclamation was targeted to the rebellious states. It targeted the rebellious states, the states that had seceded. Those border states that had not seceded, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't apply to them. Slaves in the border states were still slaves after the Emancipation Proclamation time kicked in. Because the document itself said it applied to the rebellious states. Now, since it applied to rebellious states, it really couldn't go into effect unless they let it go into effect. You can't see President Trump, Obama, They can't make a decree that applies to Canada or Mexico. Because the Federal States of America is a country at this point. Their own president, own legislature, print their own money. Their Emancipation Proclamation applied to them. They ignored it. It ain't nothing to us. We ain't let nobody go. Unless the Union takes over that territory. Once the Union takes over that territory, it applies. The reason they let it apply is because most of the people who were able to enforce slavery were out on the battlefield. So wasn't nobody back at the house to enforce slavery. So when the Emancipation Proclamation kicked in and the slaves started walking off, who's going to stop them? Wasn't nobody back there but the women. Most of the men were fighting. So that's why they were able to leave out of the emancipation. That's why you need the 13th Amendment to the Constitution to abolish slavery. Because that covered the border states, and it made a sweeping thing over all the rebellious states. It did what the Emancipation Proclamation didn't do. Child labor amendment would empower the federal government to limit, regulate, and prohibit child labor. Been pending since 1924, still not ratified by the states. Equal Rights Amendment will prohibit deprivation of equality of rights by the federal or state government on account of sex. Introduced in 1923. Initial ratification period ended. It had a time limit on it to 1979. It didn't make it. Congress extended it to 1982, and it still didn't make it. We do not have an equal rights amendments in this country today, not to the Constitution. It is still legal. We have the EEOC and all that, but we talk about constitutional amendment to the Constitution that is against the constitutional law to discriminate based on sex. That failed. Now you say, why did that fail? There are more women in the country than men. Why don't they vote legislators out of office that won't vote this in? How could that fail? They since 1923, 1979, it exhausted itself. Give it 3 more years, exhausted again. Everybody's saying that. Wonder why. The Women Live movement, they ain't up in arms. Everybody say it ain't on the agenda. I wonder why. Let me tell you why. The women were the one that stopped it. That's why. The women were the ones that said don't do nothing about it. Because when it went out to be ratified by the states, all the women had to do was attack the state legislature. Say, when this comes to this state, we want you to pass it. When it comes to this state, we want you to pass it. We're going to vote you out of office. But when it came to the state, the women can't go pass that. Leave that alone. The women said, don't pass it. I wonder why. I'm glad you asked. Women said don't pass it because they realized after they had put it together that if you really want to be equal with men, that means you're going to register for the draft. And you're going to go into the military just like the men. All of that was encompassed in the equality. And once that came out, that your real equality meant getting on the front line with a rifle with everybody else, among other things. They were out there against it and told the legislators, you can let that die. We're not interested. And the thing about it is, they're still considering drafting women even today. It's on the books right now trying to get women to register when they turn 18. The District of Columbia Voting Rights Amendment will have treated the District of Columbia as if it were a state regarding representation in the United States Congress, Electoral College, and when the Constitution is amended. It failed. Introduced in 1978 that Washington, D.C. be treated like a state. And they said, no go. Now, as we start to kind of bring it to a close here, let's look at, now that you know about the amendment process, let's look at what's going on in the world today in light of that amendment process. Former Oklahoma Senator Tom Corbin, you can't drain the swamp, you have to muzzle the alligator. And Article 5 movement, there's a movement in this country called the Article 5 movement. It's based on Article 5 of the Constitution and the process for amending it. There's a well-organized machine, well-funded in America right now that's moving for a constitutional convention. The church is asleep while this is going on. Jim DeNette wants to give Tea Party a new mission. This is USA Today. Former president of the Heritage Foundation is joining the Convention of States project as a senior advisor. Convention of States project now. You want to put that in your notes. Okay. This is where this thing is going. USA, they reported. The USA Today got it all out there. We just not see it. Former South Carolina Senator Jim DeNette, ousted last month as head of the Heritage Foundation, they got rid of that think tank, is joining a fast-growing conservative movement that is pushing states to seek a constitutional convention to rein in federal spending and power. You see, when you get a convention on one thing, what they say is Congress spent too much money. We got to rein them in. But once you get that convention going, you can't control the delegates. DeNette, a prominent figure among the Tea Party activists, will serve as a senior advisor to the Convention of States project for a state-led movement. It's a state-led movement to amend the Constitution. Because once they go to the various legislators and say, we need to rein in Congress spending and get 2/3 of the states to say, we do need to rein in Congress spending. Let's call for a constitutional convention. Let's get some delegates together. But when they get that, they are not held to any specific agenda. That convention can be a runaway convention. Under Article 5 of the Constitution, this is USA Today, there are 2 avenues to propose amendments. 2/3 of each House can vote to do so, or 2/3 of the states, 34 in total, can request a convention. 3/4 of the state, 38, must ratify any amendment proposed by the convention delegates. So that's the whole process right there. The folks who are knowledgeable about this process, they know all the mechanisms. And they're well organized. The USA has not held a constitutional convention since the first one in 1787. But proponents of a state-led conclave see growing momentum for their cause. 12 states already have adopted the group's cause. You see what I said? You need 34. 12 have already jumped on board. And the church is sleeping. A separate effort demanding a convention to consider a balanced budget amendment already has support of 27 states. Let's just find something that's going on in the world today that everybody get on board with to get this convention going. That's where the devil works. Then once we get the convention, we get in there and do what we want to do. And this is cutting paste out of the USA Today. This ain't something I had to go find. It was front page news of the USA Today. I don't subscribe to it. I just picked it up as a free copy when I was in a hotel.
All right.
I said, well, I can use that. That's not, I need to be tapping into this. The men and other proponents of a state-led convention say the timing is right. Populist anger. See that word? Populist anger? That's the Trump word, that populism. Populist anger. Washington helped sweep President Trump into office. This is their reporting. At the state level, Republicans now dominate, controlling both legislative chambers in 32 states and governor's mansion in 33 states. This is the perfect time for us, the men say, while the church is sleeping. There's a movement. You know, I saw that alligator, ain't nothing short on the alligator but his eye. Everything else about it is on the water. And he studied coming to the shore. The wildebeest got his head down there drinking. You don't see those 2 eyeballs heading toward him. And that's the same way the church is. That's some eyeballs heading towards us, and we're just asleep. The movement DeNette is joining asked for a convention covering 3 sweeping topics. imposing fiscal restraints on Washington, reducing the federal government authority over the states, and imposing term limits on federal officials. That's a popular thing right now, those three. They got their hand on the pulse of America, and these three things are popular. And 27 states are already on board with it. The group said the convention that results from the state applications could also propose a range of amendments, from one requiring the federal government to balance the budget, or to one ending lifetime appointments of federal judges, including the Supreme Court justice. When you get into a convention, the delegates can do anything. They're not restricted to the agenda you set them there for. They get there and they say, hey, don't you think these Supreme Court justices need to have a term limit like everybody else? Don't you think these Superior Court judges ought to be limited just like everybody else? What do you think about a Sunday law? Anything getting out of hand around here? You know, ain't nothing like a group of people get together and herd mentality or sweeping all around the place.
Come on now.
All they take is get a group. They call it a runaway convention. That's why this process hasn't been tried since the first convention to establish the Constitution. Now, one amendment, that Corwin Amendment, was voted in by Illinois while they were in a state convention for something else. But they questioned whether the validity of it. Rewriting the Constitution, a nonprofit group, Citizens for Self-Governance, is pushing states to call for a convention of states to make change to the Constitution. So far, 12 states have adopted the language favored by the group. These 12 states, Georgia is on board. Alabama, South Carolina, no other part of the conference here are not on board, but they're working those legislators very hard to get them on board. But these are the ones. Alaska is even on board with it. Of course, that's Sarah Palin territory, Alaska. Article 5 movement. The Koch brothers want to rewrite the Constitution. This is International Business Times. Don't read this thing. Pro-business groups with ties. These brothers are very rich, have pushed for legislation in more than 30 states. Opponents believe that the Article 5 movement is backed by corporate interest that would eliminate environmental and labor regulatory bodies and slash taxes and spending. Some of this stuff is already taking place before they even get to this amendment thing. Backed by corporate money. It's not just about a balanced budget, said Wisconsin Democratic Representative Chris Taylor. He got his eyes on this thing. Chris Taylor. Most, I think, they are going at the social safety net. They're going to go after Social Security, Medicare, because it's so unpopular to cut those programs. And this is how they can do it. When you get into a convention, you can do away with Social Security, and you can do away with Medicare. You can do anything you want to do in a convention. And this is Chris Taylor, who's watching the other side of this issue. If that happens and a convention is convened, there will be no enforceable mechanism that would ensure delegates stick to the amendment they were called upon to consider, making a runaway convention possible. There's absolutely no referee. This could open up the convention to a flood of special interest money. And there's no rule stating that the convention would have to be open to the public. We wouldn't know if anybody with big money was working over the delegates. Of course they're going to work the delegates over. There's no rules for our constitutional convention. Money, like it does right now, is going to pave the way for what the folks do. That's why the business is into it. Come now, James says, James 5, 1 through 3. You rich, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupt. Your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will be a witness against you. It will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasures together for the last days. So we can't heap up treasures for the last days. Nothing going to sustain us in the last days.
That's right.
But our connection to Christ. If we have any earthly support, that earthly support is going to be kicked right up under us. We must start today with a total reliance and dependence upon Jesus Christ. Article 5, wealthy donors, super PACs, special interests, genius in education, all of these play a part in this movement. For her sins have reached up to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Listen now, America has many iniquities. There will be, then will the papal SAC be enforced by the combined authority of church and state. There will be a national apostasy, which will end only in what? National ruin. Laws enforcing the observance of Sunday as the Sabbath will bring about a national apostasy from the principles of republicanism upon which the government has founded. The religion of the papacy will be accepted by the rulers, and the law of God will be made void. Last day events, page 132. A nation speaks through its legislators. See, when the legislators speak, like with the Jews, when they stoned Stephen, people didn't say anything. That was done by the religious people who were running it. At the stoning of Stephen, that's it. The gospel goes to the Gentiles. The nation speaks through its legislature. The laws it makes and enforces. When America enacts a Sunday law and ratifies it by way of 3/4 of the states, and the people approve by singing and dancing in the streets with a joy at the announcement that they did in France in the 18th century, apostasy will result and God will act. And national ruin will follow. When they pass these laws in the convention, the people of America are going to dance in the streets just like they did in France. The abandonment or renunciation, that's what apostasy means, of a religion or political belief. Apostasy. It's falling away. As the approach of the Roman armies was a sign to the disciples of the impending destruction of Jerusalem, so may this apostasy be a sign to us. Final event will be rapid ones. The limit of God's forbearance is reached. How? That the measure of our nation's iniquity is full. That angel of mercy is about to take their flight, never to return. People of God will then be plunged into those scenes of affliction and distress which prophets have described as the time of Jacob's trouble. You know what the time of Jacob's trouble is for? Time of Jacob's trouble, Spirit of Prophecy says, is to give us more confidence and faith in God. That's what it does to the folks that love it. All the things that are coming upon us in the time of trouble, we see how God is working it out, and it increases our faith in Him. That He's in charge, and He's going to do what He said He would. So the time of Jacob's trouble is not to be feared. America has feared upper, of iniquity. America has a lot of iniquity to account for. We like all their patriots, but I love my retired military check. That comes from the Treasury. I love my civilian check. Don't we? But America is full of iniquity. Iniquity shall abound, Christ says, in the last day. You know what iniquity is? Iniquity. Now, let me give you a definition of iniquity. Iniquity is not just sin. Christ said iniquity shall abound. David said, I was born and shapen in iniquity. Sin did my mother conceived me. These are both being word. Born and shapen in iniquity. And sin did my mother conceived me. Now this is iniquity. Iniquity has three parts to it. Iniquity is premeditated sin. This ain't no sin you just stumble into. This ain't no sin you just woke up and said, I can't believe I did that. Iniquity is premeditated sin. Sin you schemed up on, sin you thought about, sin you planned. Sin, or rather iniquity, part 2, is continuing sin. You not only been planning it, You always planning it. You always got a scheme going to keep on sinning. Iniquity is premeditated, continuing, and the third part of iniquity is escalating sin. It doesn't stay on the same level, it doesn't drop down. You get better and better at sinning, it escalates. Premeditated, you planned it. Continuing, you always planning it, and you always get better at it. Christ says in the last days in Matthew chapter 24 and in Luke chapter 21, iniquity shall abound in the last days. The Spirit of prophecy says licentiousness is a special sin of this age. She said, I wish it was restricted to the outside non-believers, but it's not. She said, I would that was so. She said, but those who claim the religion of Christ are guilty. That's why pornography is in the church. Licentiousness, unprincipled, promiscuous in sexual matters. It's in the church. And there are 3 people that know it's in the church. God knows it's in the church. The person knows it's in the church. And Google knows it's in the church. Google got a record of what we've been doing out there. It ain't but a matter of time when they start publishing a list of everybody been visiting. You remember they had that site out there where folks want to cheat on their wives? And then somebody hacked it, got a big long list. Ain't nothing private on the way. Iniquity shall abound. These are the things that America is guilty of. Starved and slaughtered the American Indians by the millions. Killed all by the buffalo all went extinct. They figured that's the Indian's food, and that's his teepee, and that's what he wears. His food, clothing, and shelter, all in the buffalo. So they decided, let's just kill every buffalo. I'm telling you, the buffalo, not because they just starving, they killed all the buffalo to starve the Indians. Enslaved millions of African Americans for centuries, instituted the Indian Reservation, Jim Crow segregation, and banned private schools, legalized abortion, legalized same-sex. These are some iniquities and things that filling up America's cup. Her cup is almost full. Is that clock right, Elder? Is that a quarter till? 10 minutes. Okay. The Lord is doing his work.
Amen.
All heaven is stirred. Since all the earth is soon to arise and vindicate his insulted authority. The mark of deliverance will be set upon men who, the mark of deliverance now, keep God's commandments, who revere his law, and who refuse the mark of the beast or his image. That will be the mark of deliverance. I thank God. I want to be in that number. What about you? Amen. We ought to be as men waiting for the Lord, not in idle expectancy, but in earnest work, with unwavering faith. Don't tie down a loud mind get engrossed with those things of minor importance. That's the minor things. We can't engross ourselves in those things of minor importance. A whole lot comes quickly. My reward is quickly to give every man according as his work. We have to work. We don't work for salvation. We work because we are saved. We're saved by grace. Through faith. To work. Don't miss that now. We're saved by grace through faith to work. To work for the salvation of others. We can't say I'm saved and you get saved all the best way you can. Last Sabbath was one of the best Sabbaths I've seen, other than my own baptism, in my 30-plus years as being an Adventist. 30 years of witnessing, 30 years of giving great controversies and all these other things. Revelation seminar. And a burden on my heart, just a terrible burden. And I couldn't get it off to save my life. I said, what in the world? Let's just keep doing what you're doing, keep praying. Other folks are praying. And I spoke at Mount Olive last Sabbath for Religious Liberty Day. I came down and given the appeal. And out the corner of my eye, my mother got up from the pew and came down in response to the appeal. I'm just praying it all this time. I've been Adventist since 1982. Your mom, Sabbath school portraits, Message magazine. I love all these things. Read all this stuff. On and on. She was coming to Mount Olive on her own. I'm out of town. She's not with me. She's going on. And they befriended her there. It's Christ's way of reaching people. We can't do it alone. The church has to co-labor with us. If she hadn't met new friends and connected with these people there, she would not want to join the church. What an embrace. See my mom right now. I'm still rejoicing. And now we're going to do some Bible studies to prepare her for baptism. She's had a lot of things, seminar. But you need refresher with the doctrinal things down back. So remember in prayer. I'm going to pray for you too as well. Because I know we all have loved ones. My sister, my niece, I got a lot of folks. My dad went to his grave without accepting this message. And it grieved me because I could just see him getting closer and closer and closer. And that was a heavy burden for me. I said, Lord Jesus, I want to see my mother go to her grave. I accepted this message until last Sabbath. So don't get frustrated with your loved ones. Just keep praying for them. Keep witnessing. Don't put any pressure on them. Just pray that God will give them the time. I can't tell you how many times she's heard an appeal and stayed in her chair. Don't get frustrated. Let the Holy Spirit do his work. Have faith in God. What do you say? I'm not joking. I don't think I can get through the rest of this. We only got about 4 or 5 more slides anyway. And but that's a good note to close on. That we be encouraged. All the things that we see here, the fifth Article 5 movement, and all these things that are undercurrent, that may find us a seat at the wheel. That's okay. Just continue to listen to God, pray, and be at the ready to go where he sends us. That's the key. Go where he sends us. Thank God for your attention. Pray with me. Once again, Lord, we come with bowed heads and humble heart. We're thankful for the opportunity for this presentation that by your Holy Spirit we're able to compile. We pray that it has struck the hearts, the mark that you intended. Now help us to, Lord, as we leave to go to the next session, and we retain this information to take back to our loved ones and friends. For us in Jesus' name we ask it. Amen. Amen. As I mentioned, I have some handouts. About one per family, I think we may have enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did you enjoy that? What a beautiful, beautiful presentation. Now, we do have some time. I wonder if there's any questions that you would like to ask him on his presentation. We'll give you a chance to do this at this point.